Further ado, I'll turn this over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. Um, that's the only PowerPoint slide I'm going to share. I'm not a big fan of PowerPoint. I'll talk a little bit about that later. But I want to kind of get your all's perspective looking at students here at UNT. So I'm going to ask you just a handful of questions. Just kind of raise your hand or maybe pick on you, call out, get you a chance to speak a little bit. The first question is, how many of y'all know what you want to be when you grow up? Raise your hand. So some of you have declared majors, some of you not yet. What major did you pick? Supply chain management. What about you? Supply chain? Anybody pick something different? What about you?
Supply chain management.
Operations and supply chain management?
Coming up with my long-term career goals.
Which are?
Business analyst or product manager.
Okay. Anyone else want to volunteer what they want to do when they grow up? Go for it. Aviation logistics. Okay. Awesome. I still haven't figured out what I want to be when I grow up yet. I'm working on it, but we'll talk through that a little bit. So of all the people in here, how many of you is anyone in here a sourcing major? Just out of show of hands. All right, awesome. We have one. Anyone ever, who here even knows what sourcing is besides our sourcing major? Anybody? What is sourcing in your mind?
Online sourcing is being to get in hand or whatever desired product or material needed.
Okay. I saw somebody over here. Somebody else raise your hand. Acquisition materials.
Building long-term partnerships with suppliers and ensuring that both of your networks are synergistic with each other.
Wow, that's a little bit more complicated. Anybody else? Anybody else got some thoughts? Okay, we'll talk about sourcing a little bit. So I'll tell you my story. I know Tim kind of talked about it a little bit, but for me, I grew up in a booming metropolis called Pungateague, Virginia. It was literally a four-way stop with four houses. I was probably 20 miles outside of Pungateague in the suburbs of Pungateague. So I decided early that I wanted to join the military. So I started at 18, spent 3 years enlisted, used that money to pay for college, went back in as an officer, was doing really cool stuff, jumping out of planes, riding tanks, flying in helicopters, all kind of cool stuff. And then started to break my body down really, really bad. So decided instead to pursue a career in business. I did go to LSU. I did hear that comment. Yes, I do have two high school diplomas. Don't hold that against me. But I went to LSU a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, became an Army officer, went back into the military through that. And then after 13 years and having trouble walking, decided to go to Purdue, which is a little bit more challenging school than LSU, honestly. So I went through Purdue, took my MBA at Purdue, moved here and started working as a consultant. How many of you, is anyone out there interested in being a consultant by any chance? Okay. So I spent 7 years running a federal process improvement practice with IBM Global Services. I hit 1.5 million miles with American and platinum with just about every hotel chain out there, Hilton, Marriott, Hyatt. And then my wife said, yeah, dude, you need to get off the road. I need to remember what you look like. So got out of consulting and I was like, well, now what do I want to do? I had a degree in operations from Purdue, but I got this weird opportunity to interview for a procurement position at a company called EDS, Electronic Data Systems. Some of you may remember them, some of you may not. They've now evolved multiple times and now they're a company called DXC. So I started in the procurement world and my first gig, to be totally honest with you, was incredibly boring. I had to source third-party data center maintenance. So EDS runs data centers for hundreds of companies. We've got 3, 4, 5-story data centers with thousands of servers and storage arrays and mainframes, you name it. It's all inside that data center. But you really only run one RFP every 3 years. You pick a vendor, and then they pretty much manage your equipment. So that wasn't super exciting to me. So I left EDS, did some process improvement work for a while, and then I joined another company called Procurian. Procurian was a very, very small company, but we did procurement outsourcing. So Imagine you have a client and your client's Zurich Insurance. And you walk in on day one and you walk into the CIO's office and you say, hey, I'm Eric, I'm from procurement. What do you need me to do? And he says, I need you to buy all the IT for my entire company globally. So if you think about that, that's about 2 billion in spend. If you think about IT, what are we talking about? We're talking about servers, we're talking about software programs, we're talking about laptops, we're talking about all kind of stuff, right? $2 billion in spend. And that was what my job was. So now I had to come in and I had to do a little bit of what she said, which is figure out who the strategic suppliers are that we're managing from a company standpoint and try and work with them to drive cost savings. I also need to procure stuff for the corporation, but think about if we're opening up insurance offices across the country, or we're redoing the IT and insurance offices across the world. We could be buying a vendor that's going to go out and refresh the IT equipment in 2000, 3000. At Yum, we had 60,000 restaurants. Imagine now you got IT vendors running all across the globe trying to upgrade technology in 60,000 restaurants on any given day. So it went from being kind of a boring job to, wow, this is actually pretty cool, actually pretty interesting. When I did procurement for DXC at the time, DXC was a consolidation between HP Enterprise and Computer Science Corporation. We managed about 4 billion in spend. Our job on day one of that consolidation was to find a way to save $400 million in 12 months. So it was a pretty big impact. And if you think about the job, it's not just about going out and buying stuff. That's what buyers do. It's about really understanding fundamentally, what is the business trying to do different? How is the business strategy evolving? If you look at it from the concept of a CIO, it's looking at how is the technology strategy evolving to support the business strategy. And then your job as a procurement or a sourcing person is to understand. I'll give you a great example. How many of you have been in a fast food restaurant recently? Raise your hand. Okay. Think about pre-COVID. When you walked into the restaurant, how did you place your order? You walked up to the counter, you told someone what you wanted, you crossed your fingers and hope they got it right. They plugged it into the system, you paid them, they brought your food out to you, and then you went and sat down and ate. What about now? How do we do it now? You go to a kiosk, you walk in, there's the machine, you punch in what you want. Do you have to worry about the machine getting it wrong? Hopefully not, unless you've been really drinking a lot and you can blame the machine. It's probably not the machine's fault, right? You meant 3 tacos, not 30 tacos. So you're sitting here, you're putting all the stuff in. All that technology change, all that evolution is happening. As a purchasing person, you're enabling that business capability. And think about how many people do you know have the ability to change the P&L of a company by $400 million? It's not the salespeople. Think about how many salespeople it takes to drive enough sales to generate 400 million in revenue. Could be the CEO if they're buying or selling a part of their business. But your day-to-day job as a sourcing person is to go in and impact what the business is doing. For me, what technology is doing, what the bottom line is, you're impacting shareholders. So when I started out my career, I didn't know what sourcing was. Never heard of it. I bought a car once. Does that count? No. It's actually a very critical and strategic component of the business. But you know the really weird thing about it? How many of you have friends that have graduated from school studying sourcing? There aren't even colleges offering sourcing degrees. There's lots of supply chain, but is what I'm talking about, does that sound like supply chain to you? Huh? A section of it, right? But it's a completely different beast, because what we're really doing is we're sourcing stuff that, it could be a software asset. What's the supply chain? You're just turning on a license. You're enabling a license to happen. So it's kind of a different curriculum within procurement. It's a hidden career field, because one of the interesting things, and Tim mentioned that I wrote a book. When I wrote a book, I got invited to go to a lot of procurement conferences. And it's really funny. One of the things they almost always ask is, how do you end up in procurement? Because you didn't study it. You didn't go to school and say, I want to go to school and become a procurement person. There's no way to do it. So you either, maybe you took a job as an analyst or you started in finance and you ended up somehow in sourcing. But there was a deviation because there wasn't a way to go from college into sourcing. It was more like I was going down this path and I just took a detour. And once I took that detour, I sat back and said, wow, sourcing's actually pretty cool. And wow, I think I want to continue to do this. So when Tim mentioned, I work for a lot of different companies, but I do the same thing. I buy IT globally. I bought it for companies where my spend was 200 million, all the way up to where my spend was 4 billion. But it was all doing the same thing, all buying at IT. So it was really kind of cool. So any questions about like sourcing, what it is, what a day in the life of a sourcing person's like? Yeah. Oh, AI is amazing. I love AI. It's the best thing since sliced bread. If I need to write an RFP, I can sit down and say, we have our own, but I could go to ChatGPT and say, show me the requirements for a Fortune 25 company to run an RFP to do XYZ PDQ using the latest IT architecture development standards, and it'll spit it out. And you know what? I'm not a tech geek. I'm a procurement person. I buy stuff for a bunch of tech geeks. I don't know their language. It's Agile this, Scrum that, do this, do that, pods. They change the name. As a former consultant, we change the name like every 2 or 3 years to just confuse the crap out of everybody and think we're doing something really, really different. So it's worth paying us a lot of money. But really, we're doing the same stuff we were 3 years ago. We're just calling it something different. We're going to go from quarterly releases to agile sprints and do a release every 6 months. It's still the same process. Just change the name to make it seem like it's something different so I can bill you more money to do it. But yeah, AI is really cool because it gives you the ability to gather information quickly. And then you have to use your brain and you have to read through it and say, does this make sense? Does that make sense? You have to filter through the stuff that's not really relevant. You have to make the corrections, and then I have to review it with my business stakeholders and say, hey, these are the questions I've come up with. What am I missing? What do you think we need to do? So AI is a useful tool. I look at it as I like to edit. I don't like to write. So it's much easier for me to edit something than it is to write it. I can use AI to get a good view on writing. But the cool thing, if you really want to understand agentic AI, one of the guys on in our board is a guy named Ward. And Ward owns a company called Raindrop. And it's a procurement portal. And you can go into his portal and his tool and say, Ward, I need to buy a black stapler. Or Raindrop, I need to buy a black stapler. Show me 15 black staplers and rank them by the least expensive to most expensive so I can figure out what I want. And it'll just pop up. And you say, okay, add that one to the cart and buy it, and it'll do it. So it's like a Siri of a procurement tool. So the capabilities of AI right now, they're just incredible. And I do consulting sometimes for companies, and companies will call me and they'll be like, hey, how do I build a business case for AI to do this particular task? And I'm like, no offense, I'm gonna say be a little crude here. I'm like, dude, you're an idiot. It's like I'm trying to buy this amazing tool that can do a million things, and I'm trying to prove its value based on one thing. Buy AI and use it across your entire enterprise to do everything. We've got AI writing code. We've got AI writing test scripts. We've got AI reviewing your contracts. We've got AI running RFPs. So even we were talking at KFC's, you know how we mentioned you come into the store and there's a kiosk. Well, what about when you go through the drive-through? We have voice AI now where you can go to the drive-through and tell the drive-through what you want. Because just like you didn't want that person in the front counter taking your order, that's a really exciting job. Let me sit there and try to understand how many tacos you really want and if or you do or don't want tomatoes on it. So now we can build that same capability into our drive-through where you can come in and tell the drive-through voice AI what you want and it can place the order for you. Okay. So yeah, AI is amazing. Embrace it, understand it, but understand its limitations. It's not about, oh, let me just do it, copy and paste and that's all it does. No, you got to apply your brain too to understand if it's really truly adding value or not. Any other questions around sourcing? So an interesting thing happened to me about 4 months ago. I was at Yum. I was actually in Paris on vacation. I got this email from my boss basically telling me my job had been eliminated. And I've been, I've been a professional. I don't know, I'm 56. I've been working since I was 19. I'm not good at math, but it's like 30 plus years I've been in the workforce. I've gotten let go twice. Once was during the merger between EDS and HP, and once was at Yum. And I mean, literally, I just got an email saying, "Hey, your job's gone. Hope you're having a great vacation, but when you get back, you don't have a job anymore." So that was kind of a kickstart. And I remember the first time that that happened. The first time I lost my job, I went home. I wasn't upset. I was actually glad. Like they gave me severance and they told me to get out, and I'm like, sure, can't wait to get out the door. Really happy. But I got home and I said, okay, now what do I need to do? Because I just lost my job. And it was interesting because I sat down and said, where do I go from here? And how many of you ever gone online and applied for resumes or apply for a job, just going online, filling out job applications? Raise your hand if you've done that. How successful is that? Thousands of opportunities, right? Some of you had some, but thousands of opportunities. It's really difficult. So what I did the first time is I went back to my MBA class and I reached out to some of my classmates. I had 200 people in my MBA class. I probably reached out to like 10, and I was able to get a job like right away through that group. And my saying then, I told my wife this, I'm like, you got to understand, babe, networks make the world go round, because being able to reach out to people that you know to get them to help you find a job at that point was really helpful for me. Well, this last time when it happened, you know, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. The economy and the job market is tough right now. I mean, you look at a job, if it's any decent job, it's like, click here to apply. You're one of 557 million applicants. Good luck. So when I lost my job this time, I had to do the same thing. I had to network to find opportunities, but I started with my network. This time I probably activated like 20% of my network, where I reached out to people I knew to to ask them to help me find a job. Hey, your company's hiring us a position. Can you refer me to the recruiter? Can you connect me to the hiring manager? I worked that network. And I had a lot of interviews, to be honest with you. I didn't really prepare for them, so I didn't do as well as I could have, but it took me about 2 months to find a job. So the reason I'm telling you this is, if you look around the room right now, look at all these people. This is the start of your network. And it's very, very important that as you're going through your college experience, as you're going through your work experience, the one key piece of advice I would give you is, networks don't make the world go round. Networks are your world. Do you understand what I mean? If something happens and you need something, you want to be able to reach out to people, you need a good network. So that's one thing I definitely recommend is, again, start here. Start with people you know. Build that network in what you're doing. Okay? Because I think that's a critical thing. As a person with a lot of years experience in business, don't underestimate the value of a great network, because it will help you whenever you need help. Okay? I will also say, learn to network with people that you should network with. I have a concept called Team Eric. What Team Eric is over the course of my career, these are people that I've worked with that were amazing to work with. Some of them are bosses. Some of them are used to work for me. Some of them are my peers. But when I'm looking for a job, I'll gladly work for somebody who used to work for me before. And I've actually hired former bosses to work for me when they lost their job. It doesn't matter. Like, titles and all those things are not really important. What's ultimately important in your job is who you work for, who you work with, and who works for you. If you got a great team, a great boss, and a good group of peers, you will love your job. If one of those three is not as good as you want it to be, your job's not going to be great. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Network's really important. Build that up. The other thing is interviewing. How many of y'all have been interviewing for internships, interviewing for jobs so far? Is it fun? How many of y'all like doing that? Raise your hand. 1, 2 people. Okay. If you like doing it, how long do you prepare for it? Or how long have you spent preparing for it?
Usually at least like an hour or two for each if it's the one I actually care about, but often it's just an experience to practice in interviewing.
Okay.
I'd say about a good like 3 hours searching into like what the company, what their mission statement is, like what they do, and then try to prepare to get like a great understanding of what they do and try to teach like the interviewer something about the thing that they didn't know. And it's kind of just like understanding like what your place in that company would be and how you'd be a good fit into that role.
Okay. I think that's a really key part. When you're looking for a job, when you only have one job, you take what you can get. But the second you have two, your world just changed. Now you have all the power in the world and you have all the leverage in the world. And what I mean by that is make sure you understand the company you're going to join. Not all companies are created the same. I worked with several companies that were incredibly toxic. And what I mean by toxic is it's Wednesday. The CFO looks at the numbers and says, we're going to miss quarter. Start calling the directors. Y'all need to hire, you need to fire 200 people today because we need to make our quarterly numbers. It doesn't get more toxic than that. So I'm very sincere about take the time, number one, from an interviewing standpoint, know yourself. When you're going for a job interview, what you need to understand, and what I used to tell students when I was at Purdue, I worked in the career placement office. So I help kids prepare for interviews, students prepare for interviews. And what I told them is your life is a highlight reel. How many of y'all seen Play of the Day? Anybody still watch sports? Okay, Play of the Day. How many of you seen a real cool YouTube video that went viral? Okay, so it's your chance to go viral. Look back at all the things you've done in your professional career and say, I want to have 4 or 5 videos that could go viral with a recruiter. And you focus on those and be ready to answer a question using your highlight reel, using your viral video. So if a recruiter asks you, how'd you deal with a difficult person? Here's what I did. How did you solve a complex problem? Guess what? Dealing with a difficult person is a really complex problem. Here's what I did. So what I'm telling you to do is have answers for those recruiting questions to help you prepare for the interview. But don't also remember an interview is like a date. You also want to find out about that company. So make sure that company is a fit for you. Because believe it or not, you may think all these companies sound great, and they do on TV. When you watch the commercials, they're amazing. But when you get inside the trenches and start working and understanding how they operate and what they do every day, make sure you understand like their culture and how they operate. Because the thing I always ask is, what is your leadership philosophy? How do you lead your team? When people ask me that, I always tell them, as a leader, and some of these folks, some of your faculty are leaders before. As a leader, I view my job as to enable my team to do their job and be successful. I set no goal for myself. I set a goal for the team. My team is judged on savings. I don't give individual goals. Our team succeeds or fails as a team. And that's how we operate. So and the other thing is just, I treat people the way I want to be treated. So just understanding how your leadership thinks, how they act, and how they really treat their people, I think is a good thing to finding a good fit for yourself. Okay. So that's some comments or just some thoughts around interviewing and networking. And I know this is a professional development class, and you guys are like, well, this isn't very professionally developing, but is this useful to you all? Do these lessons learned help you? Because I could come tell you about FedEx or tell you about Young or tell you about Accenture. But what I'm trying to tell you is with almost 30 years in business, here's some of the things I learned that nobody ever told me when I was sitting in your shoes. Okay. And I made some great decisions in my career, and I made some not so great decisions in my career. And what I'm trying to do is give you some insight. So at least if you make the same mistakes I did, I at least warned you not to do it, or at least to think about it a little bit differently. Okay. Any questions around interviewing or networking? Yes. Yeah. So number one, the really cool thing about consulting and the really cool thing about sourcing, and give me a second, I've got to take a swig of water. is you work with everybody. You know, if you think about it as a consultant, I worked with probably 20 different companies, US Navy, Toyota, Sprint. I got exposed to a lot of different companies. And I got exposed at a pretty senior leadership level. So I got a chance to meet a lot of different people. And as a consultant and also as a sourcing person, you're very customer focused. My job as a consultant is to execute the project, but do such a great job, you're going to pay me money to stay around and do something else for you. My job as a sourcing person is to understand your requirements and do such a great job that you're going to tell your friends. So when they need someone to help them source, they'll come to me as well. So it's really taking that very customer centric focus and being exposed to suppliers, leaders within your company, um, working across multiple companies. It's a great opportunity for you to expand your network. It's not like, don't take this the wrong way if you're a finance major, but it's not like finance where you're in an office and you're doing the same thing every day and you're working with the same group of people every day. Sourcing, I work with every single component of my business. Think about everybody uses IT. So I work with every single group. I work with finance, I work with marketing, I work with operations, I work with IT. There's gazillion people out there that I get exposure to. And the really, really cool thing, I'll get you in a second. The really, really cool thing is a lot of times, especially in companies like Yum, companies like DXC, where we had a bunch of companies that have been merged together, you had a bunch of people that were focused on, I do IT for this one thing. And what they didn't realize was there's 6 other people trying to do the exact same thing with a different group of suppliers. So one of my jobs is really to pull all those people together and actually get them to talk to each other. There's a famous EDS commercial, Herding Cats. If you've never seen it, Google the EDS Herding Cats commercial. That is my mantra. We got to herd the cats to get them in a room to figure out what they want to do, and then we can figure out the best way to support them. So that's a really big opportunity, is try and work and expose yourself to leadership in other positions. One of the ladies on my team, she was not a procurement person. She was actually an executive assistant. She worked with our executives scheduling stuff on their calendars, but she wanted to do something different. I pulled her into sourcing, and the first thing I told her to do was go work with the innovation lab. They're trying to build basically an imitation restaurant inside our building. And I want you to go to all the suppliers that provide restaurant equipment and tell them you want free equipment to put in the building. And she looked at me and she goes, my God, why are you asking me to do this? No one's ever going to want to do it. And I said, well, Mona, think about it. I'm asking you to give me free stuff because I want to put it in a building that thousands of franchisees are going to see when they come and tour the building. Do you want to do that or not? And she was able to save tens of thousands of dollars by just going to them and saying, hey, I need an oven. Do you want me to use yours or do you want me to use someone else's? So she built that relationship. She was recognized by the innovation lab. She was recognized by the CFO. It was being able to engage with the business, understand what their needs, work with that supply base, and create that capability on their behalf. So get exposure. And one of the other things that she did is I actually let her do like temporary projects. I've never been a project manager before. I want to go figure it out. Okay, go do project management for 5 months, part-time, and then come back. So if you have that opportunity, it's really funny. FedEx is the company where so many people have worked there. My boss has worked there for 35 years. 35 years in the same company, but he's never done the same job for more than 3 years. So he's always had the ability to move around within his company. Those companies are few and far between. Yum is kind of that way. FedEx is kind of that way. Most companies are like a revolving door. But when you have that opportunity within your company, take advantage of it and move around. So work with different levels of leadership, get exposed to other companies, and look for opportunities within your company to network. Those are the best things you can do. Yeah, you had a question.
Yeah, you kind of question a little bit, which is when you got your first huge spend budget, what's kind of the process of knowing exactly what it is you need to buy? Like at that point of your career, did you already have relationships with certain suppliers when it came to technology, right? Technology needs can look.
So I'll answer it this way. How many of y'all have one of these Apples? Apple's the world's best at, hey, we'll build something, but 3 years from now or 2 years from now or 1 year from now, you're not going to want it anymore. You're going to want something else, right? So technology is constantly evolving. If you think about it, your company, if we're buying mobile phones, we're buying mobile phones for our employees. I can't just go to Apple because there's people that are like, I don't like Apple. I like Android. PCs are another great example. Don't give me a Windows PC. I gotta have a Mac. I'm a creative person. I need a Mac. I'm not creative. I can't use the daggone thing. So I gotta have a Windows PC. So what you have to be able to do is you have to understand what are my company's buying preferences? Like what have we been buying historically and how's that going to change over time? And it's not really our job necessarily to sit down with a CIO and say, hey, Bob, we buy 100,000 PCs every year. We're going to need to buy 100,000 PCs this year. What do you want to do? So there's people that you literally sit down with that are your stakeholders that are building that technology roadmap, but that technology roadmap feeds your project pipeline. So you should be looking to see, here's what we're doing today, but you should be asking the question, we've got these suppliers today, who do we want next year? Who do we want 3 years from now? Because it's easy to take a phone and throw it away, but is it? Because you've got stuff in the cloud, you got all these apps you downloaded. There's this transition cost. Samsung could have the coolest phone in the world. I don't want to change, not because I don't like their phone, because I don't want to do all this other stuff on the back end. That transition cost, that tech debt. So you have to factor that in. So it's understanding what the plan is, but then also understanding what is the transition cost associated with making those changes? Because some things, if I want to change my ERP system, I got to run an RFP now because it's going to take me 3 years to be able to do the transition to a new product if I choose to pick one. Does that help? Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, you mentioned lessons learned. What would, can you speak a little bit about project management as a project of PM term?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been a project manager, I've been a program manager. And, when you think about it from a sourcing standpoint, a sourcing project is a project. So, number one, anytime you're doing a project, if you're a PM and you're doing a project, step number one is herd the cats, get all the people in the room that are delivering this project plan and get them all in the same room at the same time to actually lay down that project plan and say, here's step one. And I'm an old Lean Six Sigma guy. We used to use like a tennis ball. Okay, what's step one? You'd say, here's step one. Okay, I'll throw you the ball. We do yours. What's next? If she's got step two, you throw her the ball. And then if he's got step three, she throws you the ball. You want to document from end to end what all the things are that need to be done. Just the steps first, and then you start going back in and you put in the times in it's going to take to do each one, and you need to understand the dependencies. So it's all about making sure you have all the people in the room, because if you don't, you're never going to get it right, ever. Not the first time, not the 50th time, because somebody's going to be not going to be there that had a crucial piece of information they didn't tell you. So the thing about project management and managing a sourcing project, I do the same thing. I get my team, I get the vendor, I get the business, and I say, okay, let's build out. Here's the steps from A to Z. Now let's talk about what it's going to take to do them. And great example is you could have stakeholders and they're like, yeah, we need to run this RFP and be done in a week. Okay, or in 4 weeks. Okay, great. But what about Thanksgiving? Are you going to work over Thanksgiving? Do you want us to fly vendors in on Thanksgiving Day to do presentations for you? No, not really. Okay, so then do we need to change it to 5 weeks? Yeah, we probably do. So it's little silly things like that, but believe it or not, if you don't have all the people in the room and you don't plan it out, those are some of the challenges you'll run into. Okay, question? Do I source internationally? Yeah, absolutely. Hold on, man. I'm old. I can't hear very well. Too many guns going off my ear. What'd you say? Yeah, we drink a lot more because of tariffs. I mean, the reality is it's kind of a what can you do? If we knew tariffs were really going to happen and they were actually going to happen and they were actually going to be the way they would, then we could build contingency plans and say, okay, if tariffs go up over here, we could look to on source onshore, we can look to nearshore, we can look to change our locations. The challenge is the tariffs are changing constantly. And then it's also, it's kind of like, if you have no option, right? What are you going to do? You're going to have to take the hit, and you're going to have to make the decision. Do I pass it all on to my customer? Do I pass some of it on to my customer? Because if you're competing against people whose products are also coming from China or one of the other impacted countries, guess what? They can't do anything different either. So really, after COVID happened, people started looking to say, are there ways to onshore some of the stuff we've historically offshored? So there's already been a push because of COVID to try and figure out ways to move supply and just have more diversity of supply. The challenge we see is when someone's successful, whatever they're doing, people copy it like right away, right? And then now everybody's doing it. Well, guess what? When that has problems, everybody's got the same problem. So it's really just thinking all these different options that you have to source product, and having a primary source, a secondary source, a tertiary source. The big problem we had during COVID is you couldn't get reliable supply. We had guys that built digital displays. When you pull up to a restaurant, you see all those electronic display boards out there. They can't get parts. So we have restaurants that we're trying to like actually build a new restaurant that we can't even put a display board in the drive-through because they can't get a component part because the one company in the world that makes that component part is shut down. So that's a huge amount of diversification has already started. The tariffs are exacerbating it, but like I said, it's probably more of a supply chain than an indirect challenge, but it's definitely like you can't just have one source of supply. You have to have multiple sources, multiple contingencies. Yeah.
How did FedEx still kind of in USPS affect your role in your team at FedEx?
Doesn't. I still gotta buy stuff every day. I mean, it's just the reality. We may buy less stuff, but I'm still buying the same stuff. It's not like there's one thing we only use for USPS that we don't have to buy. And guess what? You lose a customer here, you get a customer there. So unless it's like all my customers, then that's a different story. But yeah, in general, it's just business. Okay. Anybody else got any questions? I think we were talking about interviewing and networking. We kind of went sideways, but again, look, I'm here to talk about whatever you want to talk about, except football. I don't watch football that much. I got 2 kids that play soccer. I don't have time. Sorry. Yes.
This be offered.
Tim can. If you'd like to hear Tim talk about them. Is anybody a little bit more excited about sourcing than they were when he came in here? Like, just, I'm coming to this lecture class. I don't know what this dude's talking about, but I'll be here. I'll do some stuff on my computer and get credit. Anybody a little bit more interested in sourcing now? Dude, I'll be legitimately honest, and I can truly say I've done a lot of things in my career, right? I do sourcing. That's all I do. That's all I want to do. Like, I do not want to do, one of my people's like, I want to go into strategy. I'm like, go ahead. You come up with a bunch of crazy ideas, sell it to the CFO, get him to buy off on it and run like crap so that he doesn't figure out that whatever you sold him probably isn't going to work out. When you're sourcing, you're making things happen for the company. You're saving money for the company. If you look at any major company out there that's going through critical initiatives with third parties, guess who's doing that? Right? The sourcing people are the ones that are putting the contracts together and doing things for them. I've done contracts over $1 billion, right? $2 billion. Think about that. Delivering savings 200, 300, 400 million. There's not many people walking on the planet that have done that. So sincerely from my perspective, it's like my favorite thing to do. When I go to work every day, I'm never bored. I don't think Tim was ever bored. You're never bored. The challenge is always different. One day I'm doing laptops, mobile phones, servers, software, consulting, professional services. We buy it all. And I'm just the IT guy. There's the CPOs that run and do all the stuff. We got a person who just buys jet fuel. Think about how much jet fuel we buy every year to run our planes. Think about how many trucks we buy every year. So it's a really interesting and diverse career field if you're crazy enough to want to do it. Because what your job is all day, every day is negotiations. And think about it. I'm a sourcing person. I'm buying something for you. I'm buying what you want. It's not what I want. So imagine we just say, hey man, let's go buy a car. Tell me what you want and I'll go buy it for you. That's literally what's happening every day. Could be a car, could be jet fuel, could be software, but the negotiations between you and the stakeholder, you and the supplier, you and your boss, you and the supplier's boss, you and the CFO. So it's this big group of people that are actually working together to make one deal happen. And in my last job on any given day, I was running 20 deals. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on every day that's new, it's different, it's exciting. Again, no offense to the finance people. I'm not running the same quarterly report every quarter. I'm doing something completely different all the time. So, yes.
Yeah.
Please. I like that.
Doing procurement. Yeah, did it? What your income might look like? 100,000? If you're around long enough, like this guy, you can probably make something like that. So, salary survey popped out from the Institute of Supply Management. They do it every year, there's certain lots of companies. Average salary across all levels of working in procurement, 141,000. Average salary for those who have worked in the job less than 9 years, about 90,000. Average salary for those who are in the top 5% of positions held in procurement. So these are like the VPs, the chief procurement officer. That the average salary of those folks, if you stick around long enough and make it to those leadership positions, 420,000. Add on to each one of those, an average bonus every year, 25,000. So I put some brochures in the back. If you're remotely interested in procurement, it'll kind of talk about the things that you would do in procurement. The salary survey information is in there. Of course, my contact information is in there, but whoever asked that question, thank you very much. I didn't even pay that person to ask the question. That was a great segue, but yeah.
Yep.
You're interested.
And I know I think we're running out of time. We got a couple more minutes. A couple things I want to talk about. So we talked about interviewing, we talked about networking. I will say one thing that's interesting too is professionalism and workplace culture. You mentioned the project management. If you look at it from a sourcing standpoint, you have to have a really solid understanding of business. You have to understand what's the company strategy, what's the company trying to do. If you're a category expert, if you specialize in jet fuel, if you're someone like me that specializes in IT, you got to understand your category. Like I've done pretty much everything there is to do around IT. I've implemented SAP, I've done call center outsourcing, I've sold software, I've supported clients. So I have a broad depth and background in IT. You have to understand finance because you have to be able to work with the stakeholder to put a business case together. You have to understand project management because you have to be able to deliver. But what do you think the most important thing is that I look for in a sourcing person on my team? Close. You said communication. I mentioned it a little bit before. Negotiation. I could teach you how to negotiate. Customer service, that relentless customer focus, because it was really interesting when I worked for Procurian, we were a procurement outsourcing firm. We had in our contract, you have to save this much money. We never ever missed the savings target in our contract. But what percentage of our contracts do you think renewed every year? Anybody want to take a wild guess? 30%. We lost 70% of our contracts because we didn't know how to build relationships with our stakeholders. I found that out because I was the red client. Whenever we had a bad client, they grab me and say, here, dude, go fix it. So I had to go work with a lot of upset customers and rebuild client relationships. So I look for customer relationship management skills. If you make your customer happy, they're going to continue to work with you and you can build a tremendous relationship with your customer. That's really how you get exposed and brought in to help them solve business problems. At Yum, people came to me and asked me, Eric, how do I do this? They weren't even asking me how to buy stuff. They were asking me, how do I solve this business problem? When you have a chief digital technology officer from Taco Bell coming into your office asking you how he should do something, that's pretty cool. You You have that relationship with your peer group. So that's one thing that's really important. And in order to do that, you've got to really kick butt. You've got to take pride in how you support your customer, and you have to take pride in delivering things for them. The challenge that I've seen many, many times when I took over is I would have a boss that would come in and they say, yeah, you're going to take over this team. And oh, by the way, you're probably going to have to get rid of a few people. And why is that? Any idea?
Because they see it as the easiest thing to cut.
Because they're lazy. Because they didn't do their job. If you're a leader, you should lead your team. And if you have a team that's not cutting the mustard, I always told my team, you can't have a B player. Anybody remember the old show, The A-Team with Mr. T? Right? You got to have the A-team. You can't have the B team, and you better not have a C team because you got a lot of work to do. You need all-star players to build those relationships. So my point to you is be an all-star player. But my other point to you is when you become a leader, don't accept people that aren't, right? Hold them accountable for being all-star players too. Yes, question.
Profit leverage effect with purchasing
What do you mean by profit leverage effect? What are you trying to say?
of how purchasing tends to have a more effective online cost cutting down the road.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, you can never cut your way to success. That's not, there's no view of I'm going to grow by cutting my costs. That's not true. You're going to cut costs, you're going to save money that you can reinvest to drive other initiatives, but it's no focus at all on just pure bottom line P&L cuts. I mean, everybody tells me that your target's this much savings. I don't care about savings. What I care about is how many critical business initiatives am I helping you deliver? And we don't, one of the weird things is there's a concept of cost avoidance. Oh, we never bought this before. The supplier's going to charge us $100 and I negotiated down to 50. Well, that doesn't count. That's just cost avoidance. Well, what kind of stupid answer is that? You're going to write a check for $100. I just made you write it for $50. If you think it's cost avoidance, give me the other $50. But it doesn't work like that. So the focus should be, and the focus, again, think about that customer service. Your focus is always on helping your customer deliver. Am I out of time? All right. I got to wrap up. I hope, was this interesting? Did y'all learn anything? Yeah, most of y'all are still awake and only a handful of you are texting still. So I think I did something right. Thank you all for coming. If you got any questions, I'll hang around for a little bit and reach out through Tim. Thank you.